Hey guys, what's up? It's Panther, and today I wanted to go over the top 5 mistakes that support players are making. Before we begin, have you checked out our website yet? GameLeap.com has hundreds of advanced guides by challenger players just like this one. Hit the link in the description below to sign up today. Now, without further ado, let's get into those 5 huge mistakes. The first mistake that I'm seeing quite a few support players making is the fact that they will just sit behind their ADC and force their ADC to 1v2 the lane. This is not what you want to be doing on a support. Now, not everyone is guilty of doing this, and there are a lot of supports who suffer from the exact opposite and they play too aggressive and just end up dying. But the vast majority of supports that I do see are just playing something like Janna or Lulu and standing behind their ADC and forcing their ADC to just 1v2 the game for them. And this has been very significant since the release of Yuumi. I've seen a lot of players play Yuumi and just attach to their ADC and make their ADC do all of the work 1v2. Remember, your role as the support early on into the game is to help your ADC get through lane phase. It's not the other way around. This means that you should walk up, use brushes, zone the enemy from creeps, try to prevent the enemy from CSing if you can, try to trade whenever possible. You should not be standing behind your ADC, as this provides absolutely no pressure and allows the enemy support to pressure your ADC as much as they want. Now, there are some support ADC combos that are not strong in the lane phase, and if that's the case, then it's okay to just stand back and try and survive lane phase, but you shouldn't be doing this on every support. For example, if you're playing Thresh or Nautilus and you are never throwing a hook out, that's not helping your ADC at all. At least look for something, look for a trade, see what you can do. Even just walking up in cases like these towards the ADC so they have to walk back a little bit is also an okay thing to do. Remember, as a support early on into the lane phase, you get to start with 2 potions, so oftentimes you can outpoke almost any ADC as long as you play it well and don't take too many auto attacks. If you play around your cooldowns, then you'll most likely see a successful trade early on into the game. The main thing to watch out for here is just make sure they don't have a hard engage kill lane, something like Nautilus Draven, where if you attempt to go for poke and you get hooked, you die. If this is the lane that you're playing against, playing passive is okay. You won't be able to poke them as hard, and you should just wait for later levels or your jungler to help. Now, the next mistake that I see support players make so frequently is messing up the wave and not helping with CS under the tower. I cannot tell you how many times I've been playing ADC and my support Janna or support Lulu queues the wave while it's under the tower and just made it impossible for me to CS 3 minions. If you are shoved under the tower, do not use your abilities on the wave. Using abilities on a wave that is shoving towards you is going to mess up so many more minions and make them impossible to prep under the tower, which means you can't get them. You should realize when their wave is going to crash into your tower, and if this is the case, refrain from using abilities on that wave, otherwise you're most likely just going to mess up the CS. The second part to this is you should be helping your ADC take minions while they're under the tower. Just so you know, a full health melee minion will take 2 tower shots and then take 1 auto from the ADC in order to be CS'd properly, so you don't really need to worry about full HP melee minions. Now, before the ADC has a chance to base and buy BF Sword, the melee minions are going to die to 1 tower auto and 2 champion autos. This means that a lot of the time, the ADC is going to need your help as a support in order to CS the backline creeps properly. If you see the ranged minions at full HP under your tower, you should auto them once so that your ADC can get them with 1 auto after the tower shot. Sometimes, however, your ADC will be doing this prepping themselves, so if you see them doing it, then don't do it, otherwise it's going to make it impossible for the ADC to get the creep. This is one thing that you and your ADC have to be on the same page in order to do properly. However, in my experience, if you just prep the backline minions from the very start of the game, the ADC will not try and do it themselves, and they'll be able to get pretty much all of the CS. Cannon minions take 7 extra shots and then 1 extra auto. However, keep in mind that most of the time when a cannon minion is on your tower, it's likely going to be taking minion damage as well. So this is something to watch out for, and just keep an eye on the actual health and get a feel for whether or not it needs an extra auto for your ADC to last hit it or not. The third mistake that I am seeing a lot of support players making pertains to warding and vision denial. Keep in mind that as a support player, you should be swapping your trinket to a sweeper as soon as you finish your quest. This allows you to have both wards and ward denial with your sweeper. I do see a lot of support players forgetting to swap their trinket in the first place, which is a mistake in and of itself, but that's not really what this is about. The issue that I'm referencing is when support players are just using their sweeper trinket on cooldown or not using it at all. Keep in mind there are specific reasons that you should be using your sweeper and specific reasons that you should not be using your sweeper for. For example, if somebody wards your lane brush while you have sweeper, it's probably best to save your sweeper for a different purpose as opposed to clearing that lane brush. The reason behind this is you can just play outside of the brush if it's warded. You don't need to be standing inside the brush to exert pressure as a support. It's almost always better to sweep the river and make it so that the jungler can gank for you, as opposed to sweeping the lane brush and making it so that you can exert a little bit more pressure in lane as a support. It's also very good to save your sweeper for dragon and baron pit, so the enemy team does not know whether or not you are on the dragon or the baron. This makes them come into the pit to try and ward it, and you can actually force a pick off of that. Try to think, what is it that I want my sweeper to do before you use the sweeper? This will allow you to be a lot more impactful and deny a lot more vision and a lot more important vision in your future games. Now, the fourth mistake that I see most often pertains to late game vision control. Now, as a support, you do not want to be going off on your own into the enemy jungle to go ward, because most likely you're gonna die. This is how I see so many supports maintaining such a high death average for no reason really whatsoever. They just die while warding when it's not safe to be doing that alone. Now, this is not to say that you should not be warding later on into the game. The exact opposite, actually. Wards are very, very important in the late game. The main thing to keep in mind here is that you should not be warding alone. Ask your jungler or your top laner to go with you to ward. That way it's a lot safer for you to be in the enemy jungle because you won't be alone. This is one of the best ways for you to cut down on your deaths as a support. If you find yourself dying in the enemy jungle a lot, try to make it a point to ask your teammates to help you ward, to come with you. You don't even have to type to them. You can just assist me ping in wherever you want, and usually people will start moving towards that direction. Now, the final mistake that I see a lot of support players making more applies to the people that are auto-filled onto support than the actual support mains themselves. Now, what I'm referring to here are the builds themselves. You might think I'm crazy for saying this, but it is not uncommon for me to see players build a straight up death cap on Janna second item. Keep in mind that just because it is recommended in the shop does not mean that it is ideal to be building. If you're not sure what you should be building on a champion, then I would highly recommend using apps like op.gg or u.gg or champion.gg or League of Graphs. There are so many resources out there that you can use to find out what you specifically should be building, and most of them are very simple to use and pretty intuitive and new user friendly. Now, that's not to say that there should be a stock standard build for every single game. Obviously, there should be some variance in your play depending on what the game is needing, but try not to build any items that are just crazy ridiculous and are not going to help you win in any way. There are certain items that were made for supports to be building, and there are certain items that were definitely not made for supports to be building. If you are using these resources to learn what it is that you should be building, try to stick to 2 or 3 different builds for each champion and learn when each one is really strong. That way you won't feel the need to be as dependent on these outside resources in the future. That does it for today's video on the top 5 mistakes that I'm seeing support players make. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. We have hundreds of guides just like this one done by challenger players. If you really want to push your limits and increase your rank, this is one of the best ways for you to do that. Hit the link in the description below to sign up today.